Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar session. And this is Jennifer, and I belong to the Zoho Flow support team. And today we are going to see an introduction to on-premises integrations. And we will be looking mostly into ManageEngine apps and how we can integrate ManageEngine on-prem apps with cloud apps through the help of Zoho Flow's on-prem agent. So before we go ahead, I would like to make a few general announcements. The audience will be all on mute by default, and you can raise your questions if you have any on the questions tab. And we have our support team here who will be answering your questions. We also encourage you to participate in the polls and questions that will come up in your screen. And all the attendees will receive a recording after the session is over. So our agenda today for our webinar is going to be mostly about on-prem. What on-prem is. We will be giving a quick overview on it. And what does our Zoho Flow on-prem agent can do? And we will also be talking a few pointers about ManageEngine apps. And we will also discuss a few use cases that we have designed. Requesting all to take up a poll that will appear in your screen. Thank you, and we can move on. So what is an on-prem application? So some of the business requirements will have a requirement to set up their own applications in a server, in a private network, or in a local machine. And we usually term them as on-prem application. And mostly access to these on-prem applications is restricted. If you want to transfer data from these on-prem applications, not very easy to communicate with them. So there is a need for a trusted gateway to securely transmit data. So here is where Zoho Flow's on-prem agent comes into picture. And the Zoho Flow's on-prem agent will help the business in securely transmitting data between your on-prem and cloud application. So here is a pictorial representation of how everything works in the backend. So here you can see the on-prem application that is set up in your local machine. And here is the Zoho Flow's agent, on-premise agent, that is also set up together in the local machine. And we have a firewall, and the cloud application is set up here. So Zoho Flow's on-prem agent acts as a medium in carrying the data from the local machine through the firewall to the cloud application. So what does Zoho Flow's on-prem agent do? So it makes sure that the data is securely transmitted from the on-prem application that is set up in your private network to a cloud application. And we have a set of triggers and actions that we are already supporting for these on-prem applications through which you can create powerful workflows to make the integration work. So how does the on-prem agent work in Zoho Flow? So as I was stating earlier, it has to run within the user's server. So the Zoho Flow's on-prem agent will be installed in the user's local machine, or what we call it as a private network. So the agent runs within the server, typically behind a firewall. And once it is installed, it establishes something called as a TLS WebSocket tunnel to connect to Zoho Flow. So what is TLS here? So it's a protocol that ensures secure communication is sent over a computer network. It encrypts data that is sent over the networks and maintains data integrity. So here is again a pictorial representation. So as you can see, this is the local network, a private network. And The on-prem applications are set up here. And as I was saying earlier, the on-prem agent will run together with these on-prem applications. And on the other side, we have Zoho Flow and the cloud applications that are supported through Zoho Flow. So once the on-prem agent is installed, it carries data through the firewall by establishing a TLS WebSocket tunnel and carries the data to the cloud apps. So this is a logical explanation from the backend. So with Zoho Flow's on-prem agent, you can integrate with ManageEngine apps, SQL apps, and also to custom environments. So when we talk about ManageEngine, we support PAM 360, Service Desk Plus, Ad Manager Plus, and Mobile Device Manager Plus, all powered by ManageEngine. Here again is our on-prem agent acting as a medium to connect to these different ManageEngine on-prem applications. So we will be discussing a short just about what these ManageEngine apps are and also about the use cases, a few use cases we have designed to discuss. So Service Desk Plus is an ITSM software, which is IT service management. It is designed to streamline IT operations and improve end user support. So SDP can manage incidents, problems, changes, assets, projects, and all in a single platform. So this is a use case that involves creator and SDP. And again, SDP and sending an email confirmation. This is a use case that we will be showing you live later after we discuss about our ManageEngine apps. So this is a use case that we have designed, and we can discuss this in live. And the next is Mobile Device Manager. MDM is designed to help business manage and secure their mobile devices. So this allows IT administrators to manage the mobile devices remotely by enforcing security policies and performing device actions like locking and wiping. This is mostly device management in MDM. And we also have other features such as application management, security management, and content management. Application management will centrally manage the apps. Security management enforces robust security features. And content management mostly facilitates secure access to documents that are saved in the devices. So with MDM, we have two use cases. So our first use case will involve an email trigger and MDM actions such as create user and add user to group. So let's assume that I will be sending an email with the user's information, and I wanted to do certain actions in MDM. So an email trigger lets you start your workflow when an email with predefined template reaches the mailbox. So what I want Zoho Flow to do is, I wanted to derive the data from the email that I'm sending and then create a user in MDM. And then once the user is created, I want that particular user to be added to a group. So this can be done by choosing email trigger as a trigger, create user, and add user to group as actions in MDM. And the second use case would be involving creator, MDM, and a send mail action in Zoho Mail. So this use case is when, for example, let's assume that in my organization, I have given access to a form to all the employees. And if anyone reports a lost device, they can enter in the form. So when that form is filled, I want MDM to be notified and put that particular device in lost mode. And once lost mode is activated in MDM, I want that user to be notified through the send email action that the device was activated as lost. So here I will be using record created trigger in Zoho Creator and put device in lost mode action in MTM and send mail action in Zoho email. So the next we have is Ad Manager Plus Active Directory. Ad Manager Plus is designed to simplify and automate various tasks related to Active Directory. So some of the key features are user lifecycle management, which mostly focuses on user-related tasks. And then we have group management, and then we have bulk user management, which has the capabilities of performing bulk operation on user accounts. So here is again a use case that we are discussing here, which involves Zoho Forms, Ad Manager Plus, and Ad Table. So in this use case, when an user enters a form and submits a form with their information, I want Zoho Flow to collect the data from the form and reset the user password in Ad Manager Plus. And once the user password is reset, I want it to create a task in Ad Table. So Ad Table is a low-code platform. So for this use case, we will be using a forms trigger, entry submitted trigger, and then a reset user password action and a create record action in Ad Table. And our next ManageEngine app would be PAM360. 360 is Privileged Access Management. It is designed to enhance security by controlling privileged access to critical systems. And the key features in PAM360 involves session management, which monitors and records privileged user sessions. And the next we have just-in-time privileged access, which enables admins to provide temporary access to privileged users. And another feature would be MFA, multi-factor authentication, which enhances security by enforcing MFA for privileged users. So again, we have two use cases here, which involves, the first one involves STP and a PAM360 action and a send email action in Zoho Mail. And the second one involves a trigger from GitHub and an action from PAM360 and a send mail action from Zoho Mail. First use case is when a request is created in STP in Service Desk Plus. I want Zoho Flow to get the data from STP and then share or revoke account of the user in PAM360. Once that is done, a send email action will be used and an email will be sent to the user stating that their account was shared or revoked. This can be done by using a request created trigger in STP and then followed by a share or revoke account user action in PAM360 and a send mail action. And the next is when an issue is created in GitHub, an unlock user action is used in PAM360 where the user is unlocked. So once the user is unlocked, an email is sent from Zoho Mail stating that your account has been unlocked. So this is the second use case. Let's move forward. So here is a demo on how to install an on-prem agent in your system. So we will be discussing about how to install it. Okay. So this is the page that you will be getting if you would like to create a connection of an on-premise application. So here is an example of how I'm trying to make a connection with Service Desk plus on-premises. So this is the connection page, and the connection page will have something called the Create Agent. So when you click on Create Agent, it will lead you to another page where you can set up the agent. So you can install on-prem agent in Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. So I will be installing, in this video, it will be installing in Mac OS. So I go to Mac OS and I download and run the installer. So the agent has been downloaded. This is the introduction page. So before we move on to each page and click on finish, there is a set of instructions that you will need to go through and then click on next. So this is the license agreement page where you accept all the terms and then click next. So this is where I will be installing the installation key and providing the agent name. So the installation key, you will get it from Zoho Flow. So I have to go back to Zoho Flow and generate the key and copy it and paste it. And then I will be naming my agent and click on next. And you can also choose where you want the Flow agent to be downloaded. You can choose the folder. So if you have any proxies, you can set them up. I'm skipping this now. And the agent is downloading. So for Mac OS, it's terminal. You have to go to terminal and type in a short code, a command line. If it's Windows, then it's command prompt. So I'm reading the instruction, clicking on done, going to the terminal, and I'm typing sh start agent.sh and click enter. And this will make sure that the agent has been registered successfully. So I have to go back to Zoho Flow and proceed further. So now you can see that the next button is enabled. So before the agent being registered successfully, the next button will be in disabled. It will be grayed out. So only if you install the agent successfully, the next button will be enabled. So I click on next. And then I'm providing the connection name. So before that, I have to make sure that the agent is active and providing the connection name and then the host URL. And then the integration key. Click on authorize. And that's how you install the on-prem agent. So now we will be discussing a live use case. Let me share my screen. A moment. Okay. So let's assume that I have an organization and I'm recruiting about 20 people in my organization. And I will have to assign assets to them. So what I will be doing is I will be creating a asset form like this in Zoho Creator, and will be providing access to the asset form to all the 20 employees that I've recently recruited. So once they set up this, fill in the asset form and click submit, I want it to automatically create a request in Service Desk Plus so that it can be checked by the IT team and provide assets to my team so that we can start with our productivity. So this is our use case today, and we will be creating a flow and see how it works. So this is the flow UI, and you can see all the flows that you have created here. And we have the dashboard settings. So let's start creating a flow. I'm going to name my flow as creator to SEP test. You can choose to place your flows in a folder, and you can provide a description, clicking on create. So we have a number of triggers, which is application schedule trigger, webhook trigger, URL, email, and atom feed. So for my requirement today, I will be using the application trigger. And I'm choosing the trigger application, which is Zoho Creator, clicking on next. So, and I'm using the record creator. So it has to trigger whenever the form is submitted. So I'm using the relevant trigger, which is record created, clicking on next. And I'm filling in all the mandatory fields, choosing my form. And I don't have any filter conditions that is set up. I don't want any filter conditions set up for my use case. So I'm leaving this blank and clicking on done. So this is the builder page. Now I'm using a relevant action, which is the create request action, dragging and dropping it to the builder. So I have already created the on-premise connection. So I'm going to use the same connection here. So I'm choosing the request template as laptop. So I'm requesting a laptop for all my employees here. Choosing a status, and I'm choosing the priority as high. Choosing the technician as admin. And I'm mapping all the relevant fields from the output of the trigger by clicking on it. And in the requester, I'm mapping the email address. Click on done. I filled in all the fields that I want, and I'm switching on the flow. So let's go to the creator form and submit an asset. I'm filling the email. And my subject would be request for a laptop. I'm clicking on submit. Going back to flow. Let's wait for a few seconds for the execution to appear. Okay. The flow seems to be completed. So let's go back to service desk and see if this has created a request. Yeah. So this is the request that's been created successfully in service desk. Okay. So we have another use case where when I close this request in ManageEngine, when an update is happening in this request, I wanted to send an email to the particular user who raised the request. So let's see how we can do that. So again, I go and create a flow. I'm naming my flow and clicking on create. And I'm using the application trigger. And here I will be using STB on-premises as the trigger. So as I was stating earlier, we support both trigger and action for STB. And I'm clicking the request updated because I want my flow to trigger when a service request is updated. So I've already created the connection and filling the mandatory fields, clicking on done. And then I'm using a mail action. Dragging and dropping the send mail action here. So here in the send mail action, you can choose the email address. And if nothing is chosen, the default email address would be noreply@zohoflow.com. And Gmail addresses aren't allowed as per the Gmail's policy. So if you want a new email address to be added, you can always choose the add new email address. So in the to email address, I'll be marking the field and in subject, I'll be filling in the request subject and typing in the message. And I'm clicking on done. I'm switching on the flow. I'm going to ManageEngine, Service Desk Plus, and closing the request and choosing it resolved, and the request is updated. Let's go to history now, and the request seemed to be completed. So this is how, when a request is updated in SDP, you can send an email. So these are the two use cases that we have discussed today. Please feel free to participate in the polls. So what is next for Zoho Flow Deep Dive series? So next month, we have another webinar session on how to integrate your on-premise SQL apps. So we will be having the webinar next month. You can scan the QR code that is appearing in your screen to register to the webinar. Please feel free to write to us at support@zohoflow.com with any general queries, any integration queries, and especially if you have any questions regarding on-premise integrations or on-premise requirements that you have in mind, please write to us. We'll be very glad to assist you with the possibilities. Thank you all for joining today's webinar session, and you have a good day.